Today, I thought I would follow up Stefan Molyneux' video, Why Bill Gates is Wrong About Capitalism, with some first-hand history. In his otherwise excellent video, Steph praises Bill and jabs at the Department of Justice for suing Microsoft for being a monopoly. While I'm absolutely not a big fan of the Department of Justice, the antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft had some merit. I was the domestic OEM license administrator when the first of the monopolistic contracts hit my desk. It was part of my job to limit the company's legal exposure, and as I read the contract, it was very clear to me that the per-processor royalties violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. Per processor meant that the OEMs, that is, computer companies like HP, Compaq, and others, had to pay Microsoft a royalty for Windows and applications like Word and Excel for every processor or computer they sold, even if the computer did not have any Microsoft products on it. Companies could refuse to go along with this, but then they would not be able to bundle Windows or any other Microsoft product with any of their computers, which would effectively have driven them out of business. In other words, Microsoft was exercising monopolistic control over the computer companies. I immediately emailed Joachim Kempen, who was the sales manager at the time, about this. He did not respond. I went to the office of the lawyer with whom I routinely reviewed the contracts, and he said that my interpretation might be correct, but it was unclear. So then I went to Joachim's office and asked him about it directly. He literally, and I do mean literally, not figuratively, sputtered that the contracts were just fine. Now, a hardline free market libertarian might argue that it's perfectly fine for an ultra-successful company like Microsoft to strong-arm its wholesale customers. But Microsoft was never a free market company. It is public knowledge that Microsoft got its start with IBM and MS-DOS after buying a fraudulent copy of Digital Research's CP/M system from Seattle Software and selling it to IBM as their own product. As the years progressed, Microsoft continued the practice of borrowing from their competitors. An example of this is documented in a June 1994 LA Times article linked below, in which a lawsuit was decided against Microsoft after they attempted to pirate compression software from Stack Electronics. What made this lawsuit notable was that it was rare for anybody to win a lawsuit against Microsoft. When I was looking into filing a lawsuit of my own against Microsoft, the best legal advice I ever got for free was from a successful employment law firm in Seattle, where the attorney told me that if I sued, Microsoft would drag the lawsuit out for years to try and exhaust me, and if in the end they failed to do that, then they would offer to settle for attorney fees plus a pittance and my silence. The lawyer told me it was probably not worth it. In retrospect, I think he was right. And at the time, I did take his advice and instead waited until my NDA expired and then posted the entire story online. By the way, after I was hired, they forgot to have me sign a non-disclosure agreement, so I volunteered to sign one which required me to not disclose anything for 5 years following my separation from the company. So everything I'm sharing here has been out from under the NDA for almost 20 years. Microsoft did things like tell content providers that the company was going to use their content in a Microsoft product, and the provider could sign a contract and maybe get paid something, or not sign a contract, sue, and probably lose. A coworker who worked on licensing for Microsoft and Carta after I left the company told me how they strong-armed providers into cooperating. Early in my employment there, I got to read hundreds of historical letters, some even written by Bill Gates himself, and the company was built as much on lawsuits, theft, and fraud as on innovation and marketing. As I said, I'm not a big fan of the Department of Justice, nor do I believe in penalizing companies who earn their monopolies ethically. But Microsoft is not an innocent victim by any stretch, and in my opinion, in a libertarian economy, they would have gone out of business long before they became a household name. So while I agree with Steph that Bill is wrong about capitalism, the thing to know is that Bill has always been wrong about capitalism. He started his company with a trust fund from his maternal grandfather, relied on his father's law firm to run interference for him, used a fraudulent copy of Digital Research's CP/M system to contract with with IBM, and the rest is history. That said, until the MBAs and CPAs came in and started to take over the company from the high school and college dropouts who started the company and did most of what it took to make the company a success, working for Microsoft was an extremely exciting and enjoyable experience, and I count myself to have been very fortunate to work there before it became the hidebound behemoth run by the bureaucrats that it is today. That's all for now. Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. For the Backlash at Backlash.com, my name is Rod Van Mecklin.